31-17. Roll Tide? No, it was Tide Roll. Johnson, a big hero with the arm. You heard Nick Saban in the post-game press conference say he thought he was the best quarterback schematically that they had seen this season. Remember, this is a team that played Tim Tebow and Florida.
Oh, yeah, him.
Welcome into the Pac-12 Panic Room plus BYU plus USU plus Weber, JP Chunga, Mitch Harper after week 0 and after Utah is named national champions of 2008.
It's been a busy week.
What a week! 2008 national championship. Your reaction when that happened was what?
You know, well, the first thing I thought, JP, was I saw the UCF got it claimed that they were the national champions last year, but then it just scrolled up through the record books. The NCAA recognized Utah as well, and I thought, the one thing now that BYU fans thought they had over the Utes, that's gone. They have nothing now. They have nothing now. So the Utes now have to probably claim that title. I mean, not probably. They should. They should embrace it. They should put up a banner. I want to say back in, 2010, Urban Meyer, when he did his little sabbatical from football after the alleged heart issues. Now I question everything with Urban. He did an interview, if you remember, with Kyle Whittingham back that one year at ESPN, and Witt had a hat or something in his office that said 2008 national champs.
Wow.
So there was some merch, if I remember right. Someone out there's got to have the clip from that. But I think, Whittingham, Utah, they should have materials, recruiting materials, 100%. Promote this thing and say 10-year anniversary of being the national champs and make it a thing in their program. They should.
Here's a hot one. I think they should bring back the BCS system.
I think so.
If it works so well for Utah there, why not keep it going? Because the computers appear to be liking Utah, if that was the case in 2008. JP,
I personally, it is kind of a hot take, but I'd rather have computers or people that have no biases selecting the top teams. Now, if the computers or even Vegas, I would personally love to see Vegas determine like a 4-team playoff, because they're not going to have any sway and preferences. They're not going to have a Barry Alvarez or a Tom Osborne Big Ten bias. They're just going to look at the numbers. They're going to size it all up evenly, and then maybe you see a UCF, a Utah in 2008, a Boise State, a TCU back in 2010. Those teams might actually have a shot to win a title, but nonetheless, I think Utah fans should embrace the gear. I already saw Dalai Lama getting out 10-year anniversary gear. He's ready to roll, so embrace it.
Let's get some Doll Americans for the 2008 team. I want to see them go against that 2008 Florida Gators, Tim Tebow-led squad. Percy Harvin was on that as well.
It wasn't Aaron Hernandez, Riley Cooper.
Joe Hayden?
Yeah, that was the definition of an urban team, man.
Urban versus urban in that game. But looking at Utah now, they've got a depth chart out for all the offensive line enthusiasts. Not that interesting, except backup quarterback, you saw Jason Shelley over Jack Tuttle.
Yeah, that was a little bit surprising, JP, because, we thought, at least for myself, speaking for myself, I thought going into the season that, Jack Tuttle could be competing with Tyler Huntley for that starting job, and to think he's the third-string quarterback, I just think that you got to probably redshirt him at this point. I think that ideally you can get him those 4 games, but he's the third-string quarterback. When's the third-string quarterback? With this schedule, how difficult it is. You can't just chalk up many games and say, okay, that's going to be an opportunity where you can say mop-up duty. Then we get Tuttle into that game. But if Huntley's healthy, there's just not going to be many opportunities. So you legitimately now have to say he's a redshirt guy, and hopefully that him being part of the leadership council, that he's willing to be patient and kind of see it through, because we've seen around college football, not just in the region, Pac-12, but nationally, guys are impatient at that position, especially when they have a decorated resume like a Jack Tuttle has. So, but an interesting development nonetheless, and to have him at third string, the most talented third-string quarterback Utah has ever had in program history. So going to be fascinating to see if, in fact, he ever does get to maybe more than 4 games as far as playing time this season.
The other thing that was interesting from national championship winning head coach Kyle Whittingham's press conference had to be that explanation that he wanted to have that red shirt in the bag for Tuttle rather than see Jason Shelley, who has already used his red shirt, be the third-string guy. The competition's still ongoing, but the fact that he was pretty open and honest about being willing to use that red shirt for Tuttle was pretty eye-opening. The other thing that we saw, Francis Bernard in the 2 deep already taking over for Devin Lloyd.
Yeah, that was
Chase Hansen.
a bit surprising to see him that high already. Because what was it, 2 weeks ago? He's joining the program, and
12 days ago, he was getting his first practice in pads.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's a shocking development, and I think that, well, it's not shocking in terms of Francis Bernard's development, but still, 12 days. He hasn't played a game since November 2016, and I already see him in that 2 deep. And it's notable, too, because Utah only plays 2 linebackers. So one of the top 4 linebackers in the program is Francis Bernard. So there was obviously a need there, an opportunity. I thought if you're going to talk about one of the new faces to that group, I would have thought Pirtle might have been that guy. But Bernard is a heck of a football player. We've seen at this level. He's really good. He was one of the best defensive players BYU had in 2016 when they went 9-4 in Kalani Sitake's first year. And that was Francis Bernard's first season playing linebacker at the collegiate level. So he's got endless potential, a lot of upside, and the possibility of him kind of making a difference this year, that can only bode well after this season in 2019 when he's a senior. Big potential in the program for Francis Bernard at Utah.
Champion Witt, he called him an NFL
That's right.
linebacker on ESPN 960, and he's sticking to it. Checking over with ESPN 960 and the BYU side of things, Kevin Sumlin had something interesting to say about the Cougars.
Yeah, someone said that BYU might be the biggest team they face this entire season. And obviously Arizona in the Pac-12 South, and going to have, like Utah and so many teams in this Pac-12 conference, a tough schedule in front of them. And I think that speaks to Kalani Sitake and the concerted effort he's made at BYU to really invest in the trenches, get guys humongous, as Kalani likes to say. Because you look at the offensive line now, pretty much everyone's at least 295 and up. In Arizona, when you look at their side of the trench play for them, a lot of question marks, particularly on the offensive line. They might be breaking in 5 new offensive linemen at Arizona. And for BYU, their defensive line has got some question marks as to who are going to be the playmakers there on that defensive line. You lose Tavita Mongo, who's going to redshirt this season, but still it might be a game where BYU can find some success, create who those pass rushers are that they're kind of still looking for because Arizona's got so many question marks along the offensive line.
And one of them clearly due to suspension for Arizona, if memory serves, on the offensive line for Kevin Sumlin and company. But the front seven for BYU has to be the bell cow of that defense. They've got so many big names like Corbin Kafusi, like Sione Takitaki in that front seven. They've got to really carry the role for them, especially going up against a running back playing quarterback in Khalil Tate.
Yeah, it's going to be a tall order still for BYU because even with the questions that Arizona has along that offensive line, Khalil Tate is still going to be able to make plays. He's going to make it happen on the ground, of course, and then I think he's going to be much better this season through the air. So, yeah, BYU, I think they got solid players along that front seven. Who's going to be the playmaker? So I look at a guy like Zane Anderson who's looking to fill in the shoes of Fred Warner. Nothing but rave reviews for him throughout fall camp. And I think that Zane Anderson, once a safety last year, I think he's going to fill in nicely for BYU. In fact, JP, I think that he might make fans forget a little bit about Fred Warner. I think he's that good. He's got a lot of potential. I think he's an NFL linebacker after this year. His speed, his athleticism, he still moves well. He's really fast as he's added 20 pounds. I think Zane Anderson's going to be a huge playmaker for BYU this season.
Filling in for a potential NFL linebacker in Fred Warner with the 49ers. He's in contention for that starting spot after they made a trade there. Continuing with the little Pac-12 storylines and Pac-12 headlines going forward, we'll be getting into the Utah-Arizona game, Utah-Weber State next video. Don't worry, big game or not a big game. Get ready for the debut of that
it's game gonna be huge.
That we'll be playing, determining what the big games are for the weekend. I'm looking forward to that. But Pac-12 storylines and headlines. JT Daniels named at USC. Huge in the fact that this is Clay Helton doing what he should have done 2 years ago, doing it in 2018.
Yeah, I mean, you think back to a couple of years ago, he starts Max Brown over Sam Darnold. Now he's kind of realizing go with just the best guy. And I think also, too, with JT Daniels, this isn't just some like youngster, like 3-4 star guy. I mean, this is a guy who was held back a year, so he did reclassify, but he was probably a class of 2018 guy all along based on his age. He's 18 years old, but the supporting cast around him. I think that's what helps with making the decision to start a true freshman in JT Daniels. I think that's key in any time you make a true freshman or name a true freshman as your quarterback, you got to have a supporting cast that you feel's got playmakers around him to succeed right away. And definitely USC's always got the playmakers and the athleticism and just the overall top-end talent in the league. So JT Daniels makes a lot of sense. Going to be curious to see what happens with guys like Sears. Does he move on and just kind of look for another landing spot, kind of like what Max Brown did going to Pitt? But I think that JT Daniels, I think, is going to be one heck of a quarterback. I think he's going to be one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12 by season's end. I think he's got endless potential, and I think he's going to be one of the next great USC quarterbacks in that program's history.
That's what Dan Weber said on Gunther and Ben this afternoon. He also noted that, yeah, it was going to be Sears who is the one who would be the person to look elsewhere. Fink said he's a Trojan through and through. Would be interesting to see where Sears goes as a potential transfer for another program. Looking at UCLA, the team across town, they've whittled their quarterback drama down to 3, and the 3 that we know in Dorian Thompson-Robinson, Wilton Spate, and Devon Modster. Not a real surprise from Chip Kelly, but him playing the cards close to the vest as they've got a game against Cincinnati over the weekend.
That seems very Chip Kelly-like. I mean, he's a guy that just won't give anything to anyone. He doesn't care about the outside pundits, the fans, or anyone. He's going to do what he has got to do. And for his program, starting a new chapter in Westwood, it seems like, I mean, who's to question Chip Kelly at the collegiate level? He's just always been fantastic, especially getting excellent quarterback play at that spot. I predict a couple weeks back that Spate would be that guy, and I think it'll be interesting to see what happens because you can make an argument for all 3 of these players. Monster obviously had the experience from last year. DTR, as they're saying out in Westwood, he's the hot shot freshman in Spate. Big Ten transfer, Willed Spate. So I think there's a good case for all 3 of those guys, and I think there's been a lot of if you're a UCLA fan, you got to be excited that there's more options. The years past, it felt like UCLA had Rosen, and then there was nothing after him. So a lot more options this time around. They got an interesting matchup with Cincinnati. Luke Fickell's a guy that possibly on the hot seat in Cincinnati, and that's a team that in years past they could sneak up on some Power 5 teams, but it's going to be a little bit tougher because Chip Kelly's got a few guys now missing too.
Suspensions abound. The big ones that you have to keep an eye on:
Tagaloa,
Soso Jamabo. Chip Kelly clearly coming in, wanting to establish a culture. And frankly, this is something that he did at the NFL level. If you remember back when he was on the Eagles,
that's right.
He had to go through the entire litany of things that he wanted to do: nutrition, exercising, all that action. If you weren't about the program, he was going to suspend you and he wasn't going to play you. And he did that from the NFL level. Now, obviously, it's going to carry down to this level in college.
Yeah, I'm really curious to see, and I've said it all along in the offseason, but what's going to be the angles that are cutting edge with UCLA? Because that's how I always vision Chip Kelly, was just cutting edge, always on the forefront of all the trends in college football. You know, now everyone does that offense that he did at Oregon. But what aspects of the UCLA program is he going to be on that cutting edge, an innovator like he was at Oregon? So that's going to be interesting to see what, in fact, he ends up doing. But again, I think it's a tough schedule for UCLA too. Cincinnati, Oklahoma, then of course the Pac-12 schedule. I like when programs do challenge themselves in the non-conference because it's a real barometer, because a lot to gain for Chip Kelly and UCLA to get that kind of buy-in. They've already got that, it feels like, with just the instant credibility that Chip Kelly brings. But if you have a success where maybe you settle for a moral victory against an Oklahoma, but you know, that could do wonders for them going into conference play.
They'll need to figure it out, especially starting under center with their quarterback. Taking a look back, week 0. Oh, I felt like a junkie, having to stay up late, having to find it on the clicker, where CBS Sports. You had that weird camera angle on CBS Sports where they zoom out on the field goal. It felt entirely right that week 0 felt dirty. You didn't get a lot of offense from New Mexico State. But it was fun. I was glad to have college football back in my life.
And I was 0-2 in my picks, so that just shows you how much I
was 100%.
You were batting 100. Me, not so much. I actually picked New Mexico State. What the hell was I thinking there? Craig Bull, that salty defense at Wyoming. Last year, no one was talking about that defense. It was all Josh Allen. But once again, Craig Bull's defense looking really good against a New Mexico State team that I thought maybe would be going bowling. And I know you can't make week 1 instant doom and gloom reactions. That's what always happens in this sport. Well, week 0 in this case. But that just wasn't pretty for New Mexico State on a national platform. You don't get that much in Las Cruces, and they kind of really dropped the ball in that one. But that Hawaii-Colorado State game was a lot of fun. I really thought Hawaii's quarterback was like a Hawaiian, like cornrow, white tip version of Riley Nilsson out there. Same number, unorthodox throwing style. I thought that was like Riley Nilsson at quarterback for Hawaii. They tried to blow that game as much as they could.
100%. It looked as if you had one team who was trying to win, and the other team was not trying to win. They were just playing. They were just out there. It was like watching Phil Mickelson golf.
Exactly.
He's just going for it.
Not Phil dancing, because we love seeing that. That was the viral stuff. But yeah, I mean, with with Hawaii and that run and shoot offense is back. Colorado State, long way to go, it seems like, for them. But Hawaii might be a factor in the old Mountain West Western Division this year.
If you're a BYU fan, are you concerned by Hawaii and what you saw?
BYU's got to be concerned about everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, they're coming off a 4-9 year. They can't chalk up anyone as a gimme, especially when last year you barely beat a winless Portland State team and the worst defense in FCS football, and you only mustered up 20 points. So right now, until we get a gauge of what BYU is against Arizona, it's a good barometer. I don't think BYU can fill easy with any game at this point.
Week 0 passed. We've got week 1 coming up. Utah, Weber State here on ESPN 700 on Thursday, and obviously BYU and Arizona over the weekend. We will be going over the big games coming up in the next edition. You are watching the Pac-12 Panic Room, plus BYU, plus USU, plus Weber. For Mitch Harper, I'm JP Chunga. Like and subscribe.